2, 1. All right, good evening. We are live. This is Relatives Fight CPS. And the goal of this show is to help people who are relatives and friends of families that are trying to get children out of foster care. My name is Attorney Vincent Davis. I'm an attorney licensed here in California. This December, I will have been practicing about 35 years, and I have about 33 or 32 years of experience representing people in family law cases. Back in the old days, I even used to represent minors in Los Angeles County. So I've represented parents, of course, relatives, and minors in CPS cases. These days, they don't have people that do that at the same time. That you either represent parents or you represent minors. And sometimes that causes a little bit of an issue. But anyway, I'm here with my co-host, Georgette Truin, and our special guest, Tiffany. Tiffany's from Virginia. Georgette, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? I will have to unmute you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Georgette Truin. I am the co-host for Relatives Fight CPS, where we talk about how important family placement is for children and listen to people and help them overcome their challenges dealing with the system.
Sorry about that. Tiffany, a little introduction from you, please.
Hi, my name is Tiffany, and I do live in Virginia, and I am a relative that has stepped in to take my grandson so that CPS would not put him in foster care.
Okay, and you are with us tonight because has something happened in your case?
Yes.
Tell us what's going on.
My grandson was born at 34 weeks and 1 day. His mom had preeclampsia. Well, when he was born, when he was released from the hospital, he had a herniated belly button. I've never seen a herniated belly button, but it was like as big as a golf ball. So we took him to 5 different doctors. Everybody said, this is a preemie issue. There's nothing we can do about it. If he still has it when he's ready to go to kindergarten, then we'll take care of it then. So somebody called CPS on her, said that she wasn't taking care of her son, and CPS showed up at her house, and she called me. So I told my daughter to turn the phone. And the CPS worker said, I don't want to talk to your mother. I'm here to take the baby into custody. And I told him, you're not taking that baby into custody. Do you have a warrant? He said, no. Do you have a removal order? No. I said, well, my best suggestion to you is you better not be there when I get there because you're not taking the baby into custody. She lived 8 miles from me. It took me 4 minutes to get to her house. They had just pulled out. So they wanted her. I took the baby. They told her to meet them at their office. I said, you can go, but the baby's not going. So they were like, you need to do a safety plan. And I said, you're not doing none of that. There's nothing. We have 5 medical doctors stating that they're not going to do anything. So if they want to continue, then we'll just hire a lawyer. So she ended up taking a 22-block drug test. Of course, she passed it. Then they wanted her to do a hair follicle, and they wanted to take like 300 pieces of hair from her. I said, no. So they left her alone. Well, I kept taking the baby, Well, now she became homeless. Somebody called CPS on her. So this time, the CPS worker called her phone, and I just happened to be standing there. And I took the phone from her. She said, well, we're going to come to your house and do a home visit. I said, no, you're not. You're not coming to my house. But I tell you what, you can come to my business because it's public. And I told her where my business was. Said, how long is it going to take you to get there? She said 10 minutes. I said, fine. So I called my lawyer, and my lawyer said, I'm on my way. So she shows up. She sees all these people. Now this social worker's scared because she doesn't know what's going to happen. So she comes in my office, and I tell her straight up, you're not taking this baby anywhere. I don't care what the call was. She was like, well, we got a call that the baby was sleeping in a car. And I said, well, when did you get the call? She said, today. I said, well, that's awful funny because I've had this child in my custody for 2 weeks, literally. So my lawyer says, you're in Winchester, grandma's in Frederick County, and mom is out of Clark County. Why are you here? And she said, well, like I said, I just got a call and we needed to come and investigate. And she said, well, that's fine. But I'm doing grandma's custody papers and this child is fine. So she said, okay, I'm going to go back and close the case. But in the meantime, do you all need anything? So my lawyer says, grandma needs everything. She's just starting all over again. So they did a referral for him, and I've had him for almost 2 years. I did get my custody papers together, but I made it very clear, and I was not playing. You will not take this child under false allegations. I don't care what she's doing, but this child lives in my home. But I'm gonna tell you, they don't care. They don't care. If it's false, if it's true, it doesn't matter.
Well, what happened? Did you lose the baby?
No, I still have him.
Okay.
But there's a whole other thing that I'm going to be doing with you. Just know that CPS does not like me. The police department does not like me. The judges do not like me because I do not and I will not let anyone take my liberty, my rights, nothing. And I stand up for my grandkids and my kids. So
Now, what did you mean you wanted to do something with me?
there's another thing that's going on. You would have to talk to Judy about it. That's all I know.
Judy, my producer? Okay.
I was told to just talk about this one case that I'm with right now.
Okay. So you have custody of the child, right?
I do.
Are there any problems going on?
Well, there were a couple months ago, but it involved another one of my grandchildren, and that case is just ridiculous. And I was told I was told not to talk about that one, only this one, because of the relationship between me and him, because I have custody of him. And I told him that's fine. But I am all about relatives standing up and taking these children, even if they don't like each other. I tell people all the time, I don't care if you don't like your relatives. If this is going to keep these children out of CPS custody, take them.
Mhm.
Now, did you have any questions for me about your case?
The only thing I really want to know, because I really am not understanding, why are so many lawyers afraid of CPS?
I don't think that they're afraid of CPS. Let me tell you what the problem is. They're not familiar with CPS type cases and laws. So it would be like me trying to do an area of law like copyright, say, for example. I don't know anything about copyright. But if you came to me and say, "Hey, I got a copyright case," I'd tell you, "Hey, I don't do it." I would be afraid to do it. Not
Hmm.
because, it involves copyright, because I don't know anything about it. And what happens is in most states, I know this is true in California, if you take on a case that you don't know what you're doing, you could get in big trouble. Not
Right.
only not only could you, be sued by the client eventually, but you could lose your license. The licensing authority, known as the state bar, doesn't look kindly on lawyers getting involved in cases that they don't know anything about. And see, CPS cases are so, they're not difficult. They're just very specialized. A lot of different, crazy rules sometimes that only apply to CPS, CPS cases. I'll give you an example. Um, it seems like a couple years ago, the California Supreme Court came down with a ruling in a family law case that if a person objected to a 730 examination, a psychological examination, objected to certain things in the report as being hearsay, that they would be left um, out of evidence. Now, in a criminal case, it was a criminal case. I think the name of the case was People v. Sanchez. In that case, I mean, the defendant had a lot of important rights. And then there came a case where People v. Sanchez was applied to family law cases in custody and visitation disputes. And it made it really difficult sometimes for the court and the parties who've been operating ever since I've been a lawyer, that these 730 examinations and reports could come into evidence. Hearsay or no hearsay or multiple hearsay, it didn't matter. So now the Supreme Court of California says, well, this is a problem. Hearsay can't be used, and it may be, unconstitutional for us to allow you to use them. So if you're a social worker, if you're a party objects to the 730 coming in, or certain things in the 730 evaluation coming in as hearsay, the court can't let them into evidence. And then what happens is that 730 evaluation may become, not as useful as we might think it should be. Now, the the rationale for this was standard, evidentiary analysis under California law. Now, here's the curveball. An appellate court says, oh, People v. Sanchez, that doesn't apply to CPS cases. Like, what? How are CPS cases any different than any other case? They're not. But there's a lot of special things and agendas going on in a CPS case that I guess aren't going on in a criminal case, I guess aren't going on in a family law or custody and visitation case, which I don't agree, but apparently that's the rationale. So what happens is, if you're an attorney and you don't know that People v. Sanchez doesn't apply to CPS cases, and you go into court and you make that objection, the judge is going to look at you like, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're doing. Obviously, you don't have the experience. So then, the attorney, faces, kind of problems with the client, problems with the judge, and they just don't want to get involved in it. And a lot of attorneys have told me, just frankly, hey, Vince, I need to refer these cases to you because, that's a zoo over there. I go to criminal court, I go to civil court, and, rules mean something. And in juvenile court, I mean, they mean something, but the judges there are given so much flexibility and discretion that they can sometimes, they have different rules, or they can be, a lot more flexible in how they apply that rule, because they say, the protection of children is an important thing. I mean, I agree, but should we have different rules for them? I don't think so. That's just my humble opinion. I don't make the law. I'm not a judge, but that's why I think a lot of attorneys, excuse me, are afraid, or afraid may not be the right word, or hesitant to go into juvenile court and help people. And I've talked to attorneys that are, very aggressive criminal attorneys, very aggressive family law attorneys, and they won't go into juvenile court. They're like, oh no, that, I don't want to get involved in that because it's so, wacky the way the laws are applied and the way a lot of people say, and I'm not saying this, but they say, they sure violate people's rights over there. I don't know if I could deal with that. Right? So it's just a special area of law, and a lot of attorneys are hesitant. So that I wanted to explain that, Tiffany. Does that make sense to you?
It does. And and the same reason that the lawyers don't want to get involved, I got to tell you, in this area, this is why a lot of relatives will not get involved. Okay? They are afraid of CPS because CPS is like, I know they're a cancer. Okay? They're a cancer here.
They're cancer
very sad.
everywhere. They're cancer everywhere, honey. Everywhere.
Right. But here, this town is very biased towards races other than white. My children are black. My grandchildren are black. Most of the people that I help, because I do advocate for parents here, almost every person I've advocated for have been African American. And it blows my mind that they get these lawyers here that really don't do anything. And if you say, well, if you tell a lawyer, well, can I give my child to my grandmother or another relative? They're like, well, we'll have to see what the judge says. No, it makes no sense. I will say this. Just this year, there was an article in our newspaper that said, oh, CPS is trying to make it to have kinship instead of putting children in foster care as a last resort, right? Now, it's not just kinship. Now, supposedly, it can be a daycare provider as long as the child has a relationship, a teacher, a friend, a neighbor. This is what they're proposing. But again, a lot of people don't want to get involved because they're going to be in and out of their houses. They're in their business. They want to investigate them. People don't want these people in their houses. And it's very sad because nobody stands up for their rights.
It's interesting what you said about discrimination, about racial discrimination. First of all, you're in Virginia, right? The capital of the Confederacy was Richmond.
Yep.
And I guess it was in the past year, they just started removing those Confederate statues down a street called Monument Street.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I think they still have one statue there that doesn't belong to the city, belongs to the state. So I think it might even be Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee still.
I believe that the Virginia Supreme Court said that, yes, it can come down.
Okay. Last time I was there, it was still up. But here's the thing. About maybe 25 years ago, I was, a younger lawyer doing juvenile cases, these CPS cases. And I was kind of trained by a lawyer, an African-American lawyer, who went to Bolt Hall, which is um, at UC Berkeley, one of the top law schools in the country.
Mm.
And just out of coincidence, he and I used to work at the same law firm, civil litigation law firm, before we both started doing juvenile dependency or CPS cases. As a matter of fact, he's the one that got me involved in doing CPS cases. I didn't know anything. I didn't know there were CPS cases. I didn't know there were social workers that would go take you from your parents. When he first told me that, I kind of chuckled and said, "Oh, that's unconstitutional, Mike. You must be mistaken. How can they take your kids away from you?" Sadly to say, I found out that I was wrong. And it dealt with something in California called the Welfare and Institutions Code, which before the internet, everything was in books, right? And the Welfare and Institutions Code was way at the end in alphabetical order. And I never looked at that. It was like, I never looked at the Fish and Game code either, right? I looked at the Civil Code, the Code of Civil Procedure, the Evidence Code, things like that. Welfare and Institutions Code, like, what the hell is that? Do people really use that? I mean, is it come into play in life? But he wanted to bring a lawsuit um, from the very, this is 25 years ago. He wanted to bring this lawsuit. It's called a federal equal protection lawsuit. And he believed, and he was African American, he believed that the laws for child abuse were disproportionately implemented against Black and brown people in Los Angeles County. And I remember one day we were standing in court, and the way LA is set up, they have these big floors with just lots of courtrooms on each floor. And he told me that, and I go, "Well, how are you going to prove that?" And he said, "Just look around." So I turned around and I looked around and I noticed what I already knew. Maybe 95% of the people in there, maybe more, were Black or brown.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, he says, Black and brown people aren't the majority in Los Angeles County. They're the minority. At this time, 25 years ago, he says, "Don't you find it odd that only Black and brown people um, abuse their kids or are the risk of abusing their kids?" He goes, "They used to have it's reopened, this hospital called Martin Luther King, MLK Hospital. It was open back then it closed down for years, and it just reopened a few years ago. But back then, MLK was the spot where people were having drug babies. And whenever you had a drug baby at MLK, they started an automatic CPS case against the mother or father." Well, he told me something that I didn't realize, and that was they were just having as many drug babies at Cedar-Sinai, which is, on the west side in the Caucasian part of town, but you rarely got a case of a drug baby from Cedar-Sinai. And so he believed that that was a disproportionate enforcement of the juvenile law, and it was an equal protection violation. He never got around to it in all of these years to bring that lawsuit. And I told him, I said, "Hey, if you ever do, I'd like to be involved with it with you." But he never got around to doing it. And as a matter of fact, I think it's been a year or so, maybe a little bit more. He passed away. Um, and he never was able to bring that lawsuit. But even now, the courts are closed, but even now, um, you see a disproportionate share. But let me tell you something. What I've seen that it's like rap music. It crossed over, right? Well, CPS cases, they've crossed over into the big time, right? Because there's a lot of money involved, and now you see um, everyone, being subject to CPS more so. So I don't know if it's still, a prejudice thing, but I do get a lot of people who call me and tell me about their case, and they tell me straight out, hey, Mr. Davis, I'm, Latino, and my Black social worker is racially prejudiced. Or I'm Black and my white social worker is racially prejudiced against me. I'm not really surprised because social workers, they're people. There are people that are that have racial discriminatory views, and you can't change that. That's just in our population. I mean, you hear on the news all the time that racism is part of our country. I forget the word they use, but it's just part of our country. And it's not been that long since we had slavery and the civil rights movement, and all that type of stuff. So I see on CNN all the time, or I hear on the news, some Black guy, got shot in the back, or by the police. Like what's up with that? I mean, everybody witnessed George Floyd. So it's just a problem, and I think it's a big problem here just because of the numbers, but in a place like where you live in Virginia, it's part of the South, the capital of the Confederacy. I mean, that stuff still exists.
It's rampant.
Right. The last time I was in Virginia, there was a guy driving his truck, and in the back window of the truck, he had the Confederate flag and a rifle, where you put your rifle in your, and he's driving
The
around.
gun rack.
Yeah, you're the gun rack. Like there's no. So I don't know.
Well, if you're white in this town and you're married to a Black man or you have Black kids, I guarantee you at some point you're gonna deal with CPS. There's a guy that lives right down the street from me and flies his little Confederate flag all day, every day. And I just walk by and smile at him, and he's an ex-sheriff. And my dad is a retired police officer. And I talk to my dad all the time. And he said, Tiffany, sell your house, leave Virginia. You are a target because you stand up to these people and they do not like you. And I told him, I'm not running. They're not going to run me out of town. And I will stand up to them as much as I need to. I had to literally threaten a judge here for trying to force me to cooperate with CPS. You know what I said to her? I said, Your Honor, do not make me leave your courtroom, go to my car, and get on the phone and call a civil rights attorney. And she dropped the case.
She what?
She dropped the whole case. My lawyer was like, oh my God, I thought you were going to jail. I said, they can't arrest me for asserting my rights. And I was being respectful.
Mm-hmm. I noticed you said Your Honor.
I did.
Yeah.
I respect her.
Georgette, did you want to say something? You seemed a little like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I did. A lot of people, when they try to talk to social workers and let them know their rights, they actually retaliate against them. And one social worker told a grandmother today, in fact, that if you speak to me about what your rights are, I'm going to make sure you never, ever get to see your grandkids. And she told her if she submits the Ring camera recording, she will make sure that her daughter never, ever gets to see her kids again.
Oh my, I'm about to have an episode over here because I do not like the intimidation and the threats.
So not everybody can be like Tiffany. A lot of people stay silent because they're afraid. And a lot of people would not speak of what's really going on because they're afraid of social workers. So the intimidation comes in when the social worker is given too damn much power and control over people. And judges actually tend to go for whatever the social worker says. So this corruption, like I said last week, has been going on and on and on daily. I think is every second of the day now that they're stealing children. I've had so many calls today, and they're all grandparents fighting for their kids. In fact, we hired one today. So it's crazy. It's insane what grandparents have to go through, what family have to go through, and no drug use, no criminal record, nothing.
Georgia, let me ask you something.
Mhm,
You've been through the CPS system.
mhm.
What do you think is the solution?
Is to defund CPS.
Absolutely.
Take away the power. Instead of people saying defund the police, we need to defund CPS. They have way too much power because of the money, because of the power that they're given. The social worker one time said, if you speak of the truth, I'm going to make sure that you literally don't have a leg to stand on. Same thing somebody else said to me that was involved in the case as well. So there is a lot of corruption in the system. A lot of corruption in the system, and nobody listens to mothers because they paint mothers as these horrible, emotional beings. And I don't get it. If the mother has no criminal record, the mother's never been in jail, the mother never took drugs or even drink wine, why would you do that? Because of allegations?
Can
Just
I say something?
allegations? And the thing about it is, judges actually tend to side with the social workers at all times. The social worker could be lying on the stand, and the judge will not do anything. If there's evidence, the judge will not allow the evidence to be entered into court. If there's a
Mhm.
psychiatrist report saying there's nothing wrong with the mother, what? Send the girls to, or give the kids to the mother immediately. Then they still don't want to submit the report into court and saying that the psychiatrist is biased. How is a psychiatrist biased when you send the mother to that psychiatrist? How is she biased? She's biased because she did not side with them. But if she sided with them, then she's not biased. But they want to make the parent look as crazy as possible. They want to make the grandparents look as crazy as possible. But when the children react to being away from the mother, they become silent. And they say that it's the mother's fault, or the grandmother's fault, or the aunt's fault. It's not true. The kids react the way they do is because you're stealing them away from their comfort zone. Because if they were being abused, they wouldn't cry for their mother daily. However, the system is about who you know and how much money you have in your bank.
Mhm.
It's not about being a good parent. It's about what your bank account number states. That's it.
Can I
So
say something?
yes, is important. Yes.
Go ahead.
I had a CPS case. This is how I actually started advocating. Now, I was 25. Of course, I'm past that now.
No.
And I learned how they were because I kept filing motions because I got in trouble. I gave my kids, I signed temporary custody over to my ex-husband. Wrong. He was a drunk and a crack addict. So when I got in trouble, he turned my kids over because he knew I couldn't do anything. Well, when I got out of trouble, I went to court and they kept denying me. No, 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 no. They wanted me to jump through all these hoops. I told them I'm not doing nothing. Okay. These are my kids. Finally, I hired an attorney. She was awesome. They wouldn't give me the records. She got the records. Find out that my daughter was being sexually abused and beaten, had a broken nose, 2 black eyes, beaten daily, my son too. Okay. How I found out how corrupt they were, this social worker got on the stand. I had no clue what was going on. The social worker started being questioned by my lawyer. This woman falsified every document in my file, lied about everything.
Mm-hmm.
The judge, she didn't like me either, but she did do this. When their attorney stood up and said, "Oh my God, Your Honor, I had no clue," the judge said, "The highest recommendation that I can give you," whatever his name was, "is she needs to be fired."
Mm-hmm.
So they impeached her whole testimony and they fired her. That from that day on, I said, you know what? I'm going to make it my life's mission to help any and everybody I can who catches a CPS case, because now I know the truth. And that blew me away. And now they're doing it every day, all night. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wrong.
And Tiffany, if I may add, also they literally copy and paste somebody else's name on the report, somebody else's phone number, and I'm like, who is this Nora Hernandez? I mean, I'm talking to Julie Weber. Who is this Nora Hernandez? And Julie is like, I don't know. You know, who is this person? Who did you talk to? Oh, we called, but this is not the number. This is not the address. So which address did you go to? So which address had the clutter and the damages that you guys talk about outside the lawn? And the mother and the father would take pictures of the house. Like, this is not my house, Your Honor. This is somebody else's house. And the judge looks at them and tell them to shut up. Now,
Yeah.
why would a judge who wears a black robe and has the authority to judge over people, why would you do that? Why would you be compelled to tell somebody to shut up? And I know they do. Believe me, I know they do.
Well, you know what?
They treat you like you're below mud, like you're literally nothing but a number.
That's what you are.
Human. Yeah, you're not human. You're just
Right.
a number. Yeah. So to me, they have another thing I should even for people to consider. Voting, of course, is very important, but to educate judges and educate people on reading what a narcissist behavior is in court. Oftentimes, a narcissist will get custody of a child who is abusive to that child because the narcissist knows how to mask himself in a way where he's believable.
Yes.
And a narcissist will also use his charisma or his fakeness to get through the judge. The mother is jumping up and down like, hey, this is not true. He's not like this. He's really not like this. But then they say the mother is either overreacting, making up the story, or, whatever. Everything falls on the mother. And I'm being honest. Oftentimes I talk to mothers, maybe 1% of the time I talk to a father or a grandfather. But oftentimes it's always a mom.
Do you know what they call me here?
What?
They call me the belligerent grandmother. So I said, okay, I'm belligerent, right? Because I know my rights and I'm not going to let you trample over me. I'll be belligerent.
Mm-hmm. I know. And actually, I had a caller today. He said to me, he told the judge, he said, how would you feel if your kids are stolen from you? The judge arrested him because the judge said he was a threat to him by saying that. But what he said to me, he said, Georgette, I was trying to maybe put a little bit of feeling in this, because the judge didn't care. He told him, he said, how would you feel if somebody just goes to your house and steals your child at 3:00 in the morning?
Right.
So the judge arrested him.
That's horrible.
60 days in jail. Yep. And they actually have the right to do that. Why? Why? There is absolutely no common sense. And I don't think obviously, you can't learn common sense in school.
Right.
So people in the system are book smart, but they lack common freaking sense. Lack it.
In the courts in California, I've been in other states where in every courtroom you go in, they record and they'll tell you that they're recording and you have to be really quiet. They need to do that here because we're not allowed to take phones, nothing in this courtrooms. And these judges here will tell you, you don't have constitutional rights. And the Supreme Court doesn't rule my courtroom. I'm like, oh, I wish I could record you, but I can't.
Mm-hmm. It's horrible. It's really horrible. You get threats from social workers. You get threats. I'll give another example. On the stand, right? The mother, one of the moms said, during the visit, the child came back and said to her that her dad told her to lie to the therapist. And the little girl was 4 years old, and she told her the therapist's name. So the mom didn't know who that lady is. So she asked the social worker, and the social worker told her that's the therapist. So she said, well, I don't know what my daughter meant by that. She said, don't worry about it, right? So what happened was, during the visit, the daughter said, Mommy, I have to lie to Terry. Daddy said I have to lie to Terry, otherwise I won't be able to see you. Oh. And the social worker just listened to her. That's it. She wasn't writing anything. And then the mother said, okay, baby, you should trust the worker, right? I mean, the therapist. So when they were on the stand, the social worker wrote in a report that the mother said the therapist is a safe place, right? On the stand, the social worker said that the mother told the child not to trust her therapist. So it's two contradictions. So they contradicted the report. So multiple social workers who were monitoring the visit wrote down that the mother encourages the child to trust the therapist. Now, how are you, the social worker supervisor, on the stand, lying under oath, stating something completely different than what the mother disclosed to the child? To me, that's where, oh my God, like I would rather live next door to the cartels than live next door to a social worker. That's how corrupt they are. They're so corrupt that it's disgusting. It's just disgusting.
Well, you know,
others are paying the price for all this for no reason.
Well, it's our tax money.
Huh?
It's our tax money, right? We pay taxes, right? So I guess CPS can say, thank you, America, because you're paying us to come and take your kids. And then we're going to go ahead and get a grant. And then we're going to make you pay it back. And thanks. So you're going to pay triple.
But there's another thing that people don't understand either. When people get money from the government, whether they get DPSS or, when they get cash aid or food stamps, 4 years after they collect food stamps or cash aid, 4 years, what they do, they go after their kids. So people think the government is helping them, but they're really not helping them, because I found out that there's actually a cutoff period, 4 years.
Wow.
And then they go after your kids. So usually they attack the children who are getting food stamps and cash aid. So all of a sudden there's anonymous reporting, right? Who made the anonymous call? The social worker says it's none of your business. So how are you going to come to my house and say somebody made an anonymous call and you're taking the children from me? That's what one mother asked me today. And then she said, I collect food stamps and cash aid because of the pandemic and blah, blah, blah. But, I was doing it before for a period of 4 years and I started again. And everybody that's been telling me this is always 4 years. And then all of a sudden they go and take the kids. So I kind of put this together in my head. It's like, okay, so are you putting a limit? We're just going to come and take the kids because, it's like they become a number and they stay a number. You know, you have a number collecting cash aid, right? Your kids has a number. Then you go to CPS and you have a number there too. So it's kind of like it's a circle. And then what I've noticed, they give the children to the abusive parent, and then knowing that the parent, for example, has a domestic violence, done drugs, was in jail, but they say, oh no, the mother's not good enough, let me give it to the father, the child to the father. But why? What I've noticed is they go back and take the child back from the father 8 months later. Or take, you know what I mean, from the abuser 8 months later or a year later or whatever. But if the abuser has money and has a title and has power backing him up, then they're not going to take the children from him. The children are just going to continue to be abused. So it's a circle of deception. It's a circle of craziness. And it leaves the parent, the good parent or the good grandmother or the uncle or the aunt, like, what the, I don't want to say it on live air, but you guys know what I meant, what I want to say. Like, what is going on?
And that's why parents and relatives don't like to get involved. I got involved because
they're gonna retaliate against them.
I'm not worried about them. Listen, I had somebody tell me that CPS said it was an allegation. I said, first of all, an allegation is not a crime. You also have a Sixth Amendment right to face your accuser, and the state is not your accuser. The caller is the accuser, and if they want to protect them, no. If they don't want to produce their confidential informant, then they don't have a case. The state cannot be your accuser.
Oh my God. I want to say something, but I can't. I have to be careful what I say. But they really need to go back and get educated.
Listen, they're starting this new thing. I don't know if it started today or if it starts in January. Here in Virginia, down in the Richmond area, if they get any domestic calls about domestic violence, they are sending CPS workers. You know what my thought was? Oh my God, Virginia is going to take kids.
Tiffany, they do this now. One of the neighbors heard a couple arguing, verbal argument, and it was about the election. That was when the election was going on, about Trump and whatever. So the neighbor doesn't like them because they're Trump supporters. So what happened was she called CPS. That's the truth. That's a true story. She called CPS on them saying that there's violence in the house, blah, 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 blah. So CPS, instead of investigating, they knock on the door at 12:30 at night, right, to take the kids while they're asleep, by the way. And the parents are like, what are you doing? Like, what's happening? Oh, we have a report of domestic violence. Like, he's like, what domestic violence? My kids are healthy. My wife is here. And then the wife said, there is no domestic violence. We're just arguing because I'm a Trump supporter. He's not. And the neighbor is not a Trump supporter. So me and my husband were arguing back and forth. It was kind of like an election thing, but yet they took the kids just because of an allegation. It doesn't make sense. And then they asked the mother, are you working?
Why?
Go get a job. Well, I found out later is because they want the mother to pay child support.
Oh my God.
Or they want the father to pay child support. You know, if I'm wrong, Vincent, you can tell me. But they literally make them get a job to pay child support.
Were the kids in foster care?
Yes, the kids were placed in foster care. Yeah. Their kids were placed in foster care. So
I'm going to tell you.
But they still pay child support, though, even if they're in foster care.
I'm going to tell you. You could have me on your show every day of the week, and I could go into details that I'm telling you, these people, this is what I tell people. You have to know your enemy. If your enemy doesn't know you, they can't judge you. But if you know what your opponent is and how they work, you have the advantage. People don't do it until they get involved and it's too late.
Yeah. They, I mentioned that in the show last week too. You can't even mention God. I have a couple of people, they're Christian, but they say that they're not a good fit for their kids because they love God. And actually last week I told the audience, I said, I'm Christian. I love God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I'm not ashamed to say it, but I shouldn't be labeled crazy because I love God. You know, now I understand if you mention God's name and you go murder somebody, that's a different story.
Well,
You
yeah,
can't
we're not
mention
talking about.
Christ and go murder somebody, or you can't mention Christ and then hurt somebody. That doesn't make sense. That's not from God. That's not
Right.
from God. So it blows my mind how people are so, CPS are so judgmental. And they actually are not qualified psychiatrists, but they actually diagnose you in your own home as crazy.
Well, I
You
know
cry.
they
You
would
can't show,
probably,
yeah, you can't
uh,
show emotions either, Tiffany. And if you don't show emotion, then they say you don't care enough.
well, listen, I can be belligerent. I would be narcissistic, sociopathic. These are all things they would label me because I know what you're about and I don't appreciate it. And
Yep.
you're right. The judges, even some lawyers, the police,
Hmm.
let me just put it this way. Every person that makes decisions that we vote into office, the police, everybody, they all need a lesson in the Constitution. They need a lesson in customer service since they want to provide a service and we're paying you to provide that service. And you need to learn not to be heartless. They all need to
But
be educated.
they hire sociopathic, narcissistic individuals to perform the task. They do not look, a sane person or a person that has dignity or common sense is not going to do that type of job. They're not.
Well, you're right.
But
Because I met with
oftentimes,
two
yeah,
here
yeah.
and I didn't know what they did because I own a business. I'm like bubbly, how you know, and I talk to people a lot. And she was like, "Oh, I'm a CPS worker." I said, "It's probably a good thing you didn't tell me that before because I probably wouldn't have did my service, whatever."
Yeah, exactly.
She got
Yeah.
fired because she would not remove children.
Yep, I believe it. There's actually a social worker on social media, a previous social worker. He was an investigative social worker on YouTube. I listened to his videos the other night. I actually would love to talk to that guy. He was a previous social worker who actually was told to lie about the child's interview. He was
I
told
know
to
who you're talking
lie
about.
about the child's interview. You know who I'm talking about, right? I love that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he literally exposed them. And I'm like, but see, the thing about it is this. They give you so many social workers, and all of a sudden, they change them around, right? And then all of a sudden, there's a crazy social worker that just screw up the whole case instantly, like instantly. And then it it's like you're like, but wait a minute, the other social worker said this, right? And the new social worker says, well, I don't know, she's gone, she left, she's in another department, right? So all of a sudden, here's your new social worker that talked to you for a few minutes that knows you already. It's insane. And it's just the whole thing. They create chaos, like Satan. I'm gonna say it. Satan creates chaos, right? In order for a person to give up. So what they do, they create chaos so the person can either get angry, they can give up, whatever the reason is. And then when you react to the chaos they keep creating, then they say, "What's wrong with you?
Yep.
Why are you violent? Not violent, but why are you yelling at me? Or why is your voice loud? Or why?" But you're creating all these lies. Like, how are you going to say that I am all this and you don't know me? You understand? How is the judge going to just take allegations, right? And you don't know me. You never lived with me. You don't know me. You don't know who I am. You don't know what my upbringing were. You don't know anything about me. So how can you judge someone when you don't know them?
Because everything is on paper, right?
But it's
You know this. Everything is on paper. Once it gets to the judge, they read your case 5 minutes. They read all their cases 15 minutes before they walk into a courtroom. I know for a fact that when I open my mouth, the judges here know me. Sometimes they rule in my favor, sometimes they don't. It doesn't matter because I'm coming back if you don't. But you always look worse on paper.
Yep, that is true. That is very true, but it's not right though.
I know it's not right.
That's like writing. That's right, like writing a movie. That's like literally writing a movie of you. That's not even true. And to me, it's like, okay, so you're taking our children, we're suffering, and you're putting the child into foster home where you pay them to keep our children, but yet you don't want to get help for the mom that was going through depression because her dad died, or a mother that's going through depression because her husband committed suicide, or a mother that was going through depression because she just delivered a baby and the other twin died. It's crazy. One mother had twins, Tiffany. One died and the other one survived. So the mother was crying daily. And as a mother, we are bonded to our children. It's like we are just connected like this from conception.
Yeah.
So the nurse reported her to CPS because the nurse said she's crying the whole time she was in the hospital.
So what?
But because she's crying the whole time she's in the hospital, she sees that as a threat to the baby.
You know, they also need to change mandated reporter laws because let me tell you, some of these mandators, they lie.
Nurses are worse too. They're horrible. But then Nancy Schaefer exposed them. Remember? Nancy Schaefer, she was a senator for Georgia.
She's dead.
And she was murdered, by the way, but she got threats for her life, and she actually said it on national television. But in fact, she brought several doctors on her videos, and they said that they were told by the social workers if they don't lie on the medical report to say that the child has brain fracture or a skull fracture, you will lose your job. They would actually they won't be able to practice medicine again. And she actually brought doctors out to testify to that.
She was supposed to go to the international.
She was supposed to push it under the rug. Yeah.
She was taking it to the international courts.
Yep. She exposed them. She lost her
know
because she exposed Bill Clinton for funding them. She also exposed Bill Clinton for giving them immunity. It's a lot. I learned so much about CPS, and I learn daily. Like I dedicate myself from 11 to 1 o'clock in the morning, just researching and studying about what they do, because it's disgusting. It's disgusting what they put people through. And actually, some doctors go through with it. A mother takes a child to the doctor. Doctor says there's no fracture. There's no broken bones. All of a sudden, the social worker takes the child to their doctor. And all of a sudden, there's fractures, there's broken bones. What? Where did this come from? If there's a broken bone, why is the child laughing and giggling and happy and moving their arm? A fracture on the spine will not be able, you can't move. You can't move. So how is one doctor saying there isn't and another doctor saying there is? But that doctor is a CPS doctor.
It's all about the money.
Right. And all the drug testing facilities have to be a CPS facility. But then when the parent goes to a different drug test, guess what? They don't have drugs in the urine.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Another way she got caught is I had to do urinalysis for the state, right? For them. Mm-hmm. But I also had to do it for the federal government. So if they're clean for the federal government, why aren't they clean for CPS?
I know. It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
Yes, I'm so sorry. We just took over your show. I am so sorry.
Oh, no. That's okay. I was just looking at some of the comments.
It's horrible.
You know what? This has been a good dialogue, and I really like to listen to it. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. It's already an hour. Tiffany, I told you this would go by fast.
I know.
But listen, Georgette, I want to thank you for co-hosting with me tonight. I really appreciate you and your ideas and your opinions. Tiffany, thank you very much. You have a wealth of knowledge. I'm going to talk to Judy about what she was talking to you about. Maybe we can have you back on some of our shows.
I would love to.
And also, Vincent, I've spoken to Tiffany before a couple of months ago, right, Tiff?
Yep.
A couple of months ago. She's
And that's the call. That the next one that Judy's working on. That one, they said they want to make that into a documentary. I don't know. I just signed the release, and whenever is good.
All right, very well. Well, I want to thank everybody for watching and listening tonight. You can play this back on whatever social media platform you're watching on tonight. It'll be taped and up forever. It'll also be with other shows on our new Roku channel and website, beatcps.tv. Tomorrow, we're having Amanda Cisco on as a co-host, and I think, well, I won't give away that surprise, but the name of the show tomorrow is Fight CPS, the Civil Rights Struggle. So for all of you that want information about perhaps suing CPS for violating your civil rights, you may want to tune in tomorrow at 7 o'clock Pacific time, and we'll be talking about that. And don't forget our radio show on Saturday that's also broadcast on these same social media channels. We do a show from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. on KAPC Talk Radio 790 a.m. in Los Angeles. And it's also live streamed on these different stations. All right, I want to thank everybody again for watching and listening. Thank you again, Georgette. Thank you again, Tiffany. Good night, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.